Hey, welcome to Keight's Crafts. I'm Keight. Today I would like to share with you 2 welcome home cards that I recently made. Let's get started. Here are some of the dies that I will be using in my 5x7 size cards. So here I have some 110-pound cardstock that I'm cutting down with the large mini Slimline, the small stitched 4-bar rectangle, and I'm also using the stitched thought bubble frame. That's for one door. For another door, I'm using again the large mini Slimline stackable, as well as the outside and stitch square stackable. And this kind of almost looks like a back door to me. I used to live in a house that had a back door that was similar to this. But I don't know, I couldn't really envision too many front doors. I actually looked outside my front door itself to take a peek at everybody else's door. So this is some Jellyfish ink that I have, and I am using the Concord 9th Weather Wood background stamp. And I'm going to create like slats of wood. Like some of the things that I saw on Pinterest when I was looking is people like to take a 2x4 or a little bit bigger and paint it up and somehow router letters into it or glue letters onto it that say welcome, and they just kind of leave it propped up against their front door. And I thought, well, that might be an added bonus to the front of my card, because when you think about welcome home cards, it's kind of like, how do you convey welcome home? I mean, it's not a card that you give often, I mean, unless you know somebody who is buying a new house. But anyway, I'm using the My Favorite Things Connected alphabet stamp set. I think there are dies to this, but I don't have them. I got this set off of one of my crafty friends. So I'm just using the welcome minus the E because I've only got one E, and I'm inking up my little welcome signs. And I've done a bunch of these that I'll save for later, but I'm only going to use 2. So here I'm going in with that same E that I used at the top, and really trying hard to get it to stick where I need to, instead of to my fingers. And that was just some jet black ink by Lawn Fawn that I used for this one. So to trim them all down, I want to make sure that they look nice and tidy when I put them on. And to kind of give them a little bit more depth, I'm going in with some Hickory Smoke just around the edges here, just to kind of give it more of a front porch weathered look, which I think they turned out rather nice. So once I've gone around the edges, and I'm just going over the edges with a light hand, I'll set that off to the side, and I'll use the same Hickory Smoke to go around the first door. Now, I didn't really like the way this looked. I kind of thought it looked a little dirty, like a dirty front door, and I didn't quite like it that much, so I decided to go in with one of my favorite colors, thanks to my crafty friend Jessica. This is Stormy Sky, and I thought this was rather nice for a front door. At one point, one of my neighbors had a dark, deep, rich, like plum purple door for the longest time, and I thought it was neat because the front of their house was black. And I believe it was an elderly lady that lived there. That door's since long gone, but I don't know, I just didn't want to go too crazy with the color of my door. And our door is plain and brown, and there's nothing exciting about it, but I thought I'd soften this one up and make it look a little more inviting. So I'm also going in with some Tumbled Glass in the center, and I'll do the same for the second door as well. And I also needed to give those little tiny panels a little bit of depth as well. And those were those panels cut with the smallest of the small stitched 4-bar rectangles. I thought those fit in quite nicely with the large mini Slimline. So I'm using the same method, except I'm inking up each of these with the Tumbled Glass, and I will go in on certain corners just to darken up the edges to give it more of an illusion of, you know, the front door. So once I'm done with the Tumbled Glass, I'll go back in just one of the corners of the Stormy Sky. I find that I didn't like that one quite well, so instead of going all the way around, I'm just going to pick one corner that I want to work with. So I'm just going to pick the left corner and the right corner of each, and then that way I can have the dark corners on the outer sides and the lighter corners on the inner sides. You get the point. So now I want to glue these onto the front, but I don't know whether it's ingenious or if it's stupid, but I used the back side of the door panel so I wouldn't get fingerprints all over the place. And I used some low-tack tape, and I'm just putting some tape runner on the backs of the little panels and then a little bit of glue just in case the tape doesn't adhere to the Oxide ink very well. And I'm just kind of lining this up and then flipping it over and pressing them down, and I go to lift up the tape, and the tape's kind of lifted up some of the Oxide ink. So it was a quick way to get it done, but I didn't like how it pulled up some of that ink. So here I'm going to do the same thing but without the tape because I didn't like what I did with it. And I'm adding again some glue and some tape just in case it doesn't stick. Pulling out my reverse tweezers to put those on. And I wanted to make sure that I left enough room for the little door handle that I had cut out. So I've set those off to the side, and I've taken my little dots here, and I'm going to take some River Rock ink and just kind of dab it on top just to give the door handle a little bit of texture. And then I will take a C7 marker and go around the edges just to make it solid so it looks like it's got a bit of dimension to it. Next, I'm taking a scrap piece of vellum that I've cut out a little bit bigger than my window, and I'm going to take some double-sided adhesive. I mean, I could use tape runner, but I don't trust my steady hand to line it up completely with the little tiny strips here, and I figured it would be safer bet just to use the double-sided tape because I didn't want to have to peel off tape runner all over the place because sometimes I don't make a straight line. So once that's done, I'm going to set that off to the side, and I've got some light brown cardstock here, and I'm going to take the Lawn Fawn brick stencil and I'm going to create, I guess, the front of my house. And I'm going in with some gathered twig, and I'm just a very light hand just to kind of darken up that brown cardstock just the slightest bit. I don't want it to be too overpowering, I just want it to be kind of subtle. And I'm not worried about my blending on it, I just want that brick feel to it. It's not going to be the focal point of my card, so I'm not too worried if the blending isn't perfect because some of it's going to be covered anyway, and brick on the front of a house isn't really perfect in color. So, and here I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to create my little wash of light behind the vellum, and I think I could use my little square here, but didn't want to risk not being able to line it up properly, so I'm going along the back side of my card panel here and kind of giving an idea of where I want this window to be, so I'm going to trace around the door and around the little square here. And then I think, I should probably grab my little craft knife here, and I'm going around the trace of it a little bit bigger just so I don't see any of it in the window at all, because I'm going to be doing yet more ink blending. Yes, this is a lot of ink blending throughout this card. I wanted to try and steer clear of most of the stamps, but it wasn't totally avoidable. So you can kind of see here my little window and you can see through it. So I'm going to add a bit of tape to the back side of this. And again, I'll go in with that double-sided tape and make sure that everything will adhere to my card panel properly. So once I've done that again, I'll be able to adhere that to my little brick panel. But first, before I do, I want to draw a little square to where I need to ink blend. And I'm just taking some scattered straw and going around the edges. I'm using a scrap piece of paper to keep me from going over the edge. And then in the center, I'll just add some mustard seed there to make it nice and bright. And since it was still sticky, I thought I'd add a little bit of glue and glue that to my brick panel So make sure that I don't see any of the brick behind the window, and then once that's done, I will go in with some tape runner ever so carefully to where I don't get it all over the place. Add a little bit more glue, and I'm not putting a lot, just a little drizzle. And I'm going to stand above that, line that up, and there we have my little light on with the window. So now I wanted to prop up the welcome sign, so I decided to cut some more 1-inch slabs of slabs, you know what I mean. I can't speak. I can never speak. I have a problem with speaking sometimes. Anyway, I wanted to prop this up with some cardstock and not some foam. I just didn't want to add any foam to this one. There is a little bit of foam behind the doorknob, but I thought I'd add a little bit of cardstock to the back of my wooden welcome sign. And you can see here I was trying to push up the tape because I got it all over the place. And that tends to happen sometimes. So once I'm happy with how much of a bulk I have on the welcome signs, I'm going to go around with I think it's an N4 marker, just to darken up the edges. It gives it that extra texture to the sides in the front of the card, or the front of the welcome sign. Sorry, it's late. I should know better than to do my recordings before bed. So once I'm happy with that, I will add some double-sided tape adhesive here. Again, because this is a little bit heavier, I didn't want it to not be able to stick properly. So once that's done, I will add some more tape to the other one, so that way all I gotta do is pop it down on my card. And once I'm done that, I will take it and remove the backing and stick it to my card with a little bit of more glue. And once I'm happy with the amount of adhesive, I will use my reverse tweezers and I will plop that down. Now, I can't remember who told me to do this. Somebody did, and to that person I say thank you. What I'm doing here is I've taken some double-sided foam tape and I've stuck the sticky side down to a piece of scrap release tape paper that I had. And I find it a heck of a lot easier to cut specific pieces. Like, I don't have foam dots that are big enough for the back sides of my little doorknob, so I had to make them. And I found that this little hack works quite well, especially at the end of my session, because my scissors tend to be quite sticky, and I usually have two pairs of sticky scissors that I use specifically for cutting sticky foam. So here I've got some of the stitched labels that I'd had left over from another project, and I used the rest of the ink that I'd had left on my brush to darken them up, and I'm just going in with an archival pen and writing home on each of these. So the card says welcome home. And here are my finished cards. Which one did you like? I liked them both. They were both a challenge to make. So if you've enjoyed today's content, or found it helpful, please give this video a like. I also welcome you to subscribe, as I post weekly. Here's another video I think you might enjoy. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Take care.